everybody. Welcome back to A People's Historian, the show where we read about 30 minutes of history together. My name is Jason Kishinev, and we are reading Defining Moments in Black History by Dick Gregory. We should finish up Chapter 5 this episode. If you like the episode, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you get notified when I make a new video. Let's dig in. Jackie Robinson. In 1947, when Jackie Robinson went to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he became the first black player in Major League Baseball in modern times. Well, everybody knows that, but what people may not know is that he had to be more than just an athlete. That's the only way he could have done what he did. The way he carried himself, talking the way every mother would like her son to talk. It was because he knew that when he was in public, he was all of us. With every play he made in the major leagues, he was representing black people. Most athletes today think that it is about them. So do you think Darryl Strawberry, Len Bias, Dennis Rodman, or Lamar Odom felt that they had a community to represent? Every time some racist called Jackie Robinson an N-word and Jackie went on about his business like he hadn't heard it, staying calm and keeping his dignity, he was representing black people. And he knew it. It wasn't that he didn't feel anything, but he had to hold those feelings inside himself in order to accomplish what he did as an athlete. And it was keeping them inside that finally killed him. The thing that let him succeed in the majors was the thing that finally took him away. What a hell of a price to pay. Today, black athletes are still called the N-word or booed on the regular. Jackie's life was one long struggle. He was born in 1919 in Georgia, the youngest of 5 children in a family of sharecroppers. Jackie's father left the family a year after Jackie was born, and Jackie's mother took the kids with her to California. They were the poorest family on the block, and the only black one. And if you think their neighbors gave them a hard time, you're right. So what Jackie later faced from racists in the major league was nothing new to him. Jackie was one of the only black athletes in his school, too. But if they gave him a hard time, it didn't mess with his playing. It would be faster to list the sports he wasn't good at than to list the ones where he was a star. Then again, it wouldn't, because you'd have to think hard to name a single sport he wasn't good at. He got letters in baseball, track, basketball, and football, and he was a champion tennis player. He went to Pasadena Junior College, and then to UCLA, where he lettered in those first 4 sports and became the first one there to do it. That young brother was something else. Turned out he was a little bit too much for the military when he got drafted in 1942. They found out he wasn't taking their racist crap. He became an officer, 2nd lieutenant, but that didn't stop a civilian bus driver from trying to send him to the back of the bus. When Jackie refused, the driver called the military police, and they came and took him away and court-martialed him. He got acquitted, though, and left the service with an honorable discharge. After he got out of the Army, he coached at a school in Texas, and then played for a year in the Negro Baseball League as a shortstop for the Kansas City Monarchs. He was with them when Branch Rickey came looking for him, and then everything changed. Rickey was president and general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he was set on hiring a black player to integrate baseball. Now Now, Jackie wasn't necessarily the best player in the Negro League. Most folks thought Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson were better. Hell, Jackie wasn't even the best athlete in his own family. He had a brother who was better than he was, but his brother was hot-headed, while Jackie knew how to stay cool when he had to. Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson had a famous conversation about how Jackie couldn't react when people gave him a hard time for playing in the majors. Jackie said, "Are you looking for a Negro who is afraid to fight back?" Branch Rickey answered him, "I'm looking for a Negro with guts enough not to fight back." And there was plenty not to fight back against. Jackie played second base, and some of the opposing players would come sliding in with their cleats up, trying to draw blood. One time, Jackie ended up with a 7-inch gash in his leg. Players on the opposing teams would also holler N-word at him from the dugout. Jackie didn't say a word, but he had his revenge. He played so well that he won Rookie of the Year in 1947, played in All-Star games for 6 straight years, beginning in 1949, and played in 6 World Series. And in 1962, he made the Baseball Hall of Fame. The whole time he played, he was as cool as you please. He gave the civil rights leaders who came along later a model to follow. Showed them how to stay calm while all kinds of crazy stuff was happening around him. While Jackie was staying calm, other people around him were changing. Even some of his white teammates initially weren't too crazy about having him on the team, but when they went on the road and saw what he had to go through just because he was black, they started to think a little differently. We'd go to St. Louis on the bus and poor Jackie had to go to another hotel. That's from Eddie Stanky, who was on the Brooklyn Dodgers with Jackie. That's pretty hard to live with, but it never changed his personality or his thoughts about the game. When that game started, the first pitch, he was all ball player and all man. Jackie played for 10 years and had a successful career after that, too. He became the first black vice president of Chock full of Nuts. But his baseball years and keeping all that emotion inside him took their toll on Jackie. That's the price he paid. That's why he got sugar diabetes and just about went blind. He wasn't but 53 when he died of a heart attack in 1972. That was the sacrifice he made for his people. Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston. Muhammad Ali was one bad brother. He was so bad that the mob could never make him throw fights. They had to make the people he was fighting throw them. In 1964, in Miami Beach, Ali beat Sonny Liston and became the champion. He was still known by his birth name, Cassius Clay, then, but the day after he beat Liston, he announced to the world that his name would henceforth be Cassius X, because Clay was a slave name. Then later he became Muhammad Ali. The heavyweight boxing champion of the world was a Muslim, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. And because he was the champion, the networks had to interview him. But Ali would say, "Till we talk about Allah, you can't interview me." And every time he fought, they gave him time to talk about Allah. Nobody had ever seen anything like it, or like him. But we don't see the hurt behind it. Years later, old folks would sit there watching Tiger Woods and be just as happy as they could be. He was larger than Muhammad Ali. White folks told blacks to be scared of the Muslims, and they were. But my grandmother stopped eating pork for a black man in another religion that she would never join. That's how proud she was of Ali. No Christians ever did that for somebody in another religion. Stop eating certain things because this black man, whom white folks told us to hate, said so. Sonny threw the second fight with Ali in 1965, but that's not saying that Ali couldn't fight. He could fight like nobody's business. Sonny was built like a bull, but Ali was lean and long and fast. In that first fight, from the first round, Sonny was throwing punches at Ali's face. The punches would almost land, and then all of a sudden, Ali's face just wasn't there. He'd slip it to the side at the last moment and then throw that left hand. Sometimes it looked like he made his whole body disappear before Sonny could hit it. Ali had those long arms. He had reach. He'd hold his guard low, just as low as you please, tempting Sonny to swing at that pretty face, and then Sonny would miss, and Ali would pound him with that left. Whap! In the third round of that first fight, Ali started pounding Sonny's head good, but Sonny wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. He kept charging forward like the bull he was, giving Ali some good body shots, but for every one he landed to the body, he missed 2 to Ali's head. What with Ali bobbing his head this way and that. In the fourth round, Sonny landed a decent hook to Ali's face. He was trying, but mostly Ali slipped every punch Sonny threw. Still, Ali ran into trouble in that fourth round because the stuff Sonny's cornermen were using on his cuts got into Ali's eyes. You could see it when Ali was in his corner between the fourth and fifth rounds. He was blinking like crazy. When Ali came out in the fifth round, he couldn't see, and Sonny started pounding away. Ali could still dance though, and he'd put that left glove in Sonny's face and just hold it there, taunting him. Till Sonny got so mad, he'd swing and miss, just like they say in baseball, a swing and a miss. Ali survived the round, and by the next round, he could see again. That's when he started putting together combinations, and I'm talking about some combinations that could have opened a safe. Beat Sonny so bad, he wouldn't come out of his corner for the seventh round. And that's how Ali became champ. And the mob made sure he stayed champ. Man, Sonny was so mad he had to throw that second fight, but the way he did it was brilliant. He didn't waste time. He did it in the first round. Sonny was at the center of the ring the whole time, and Ali was dancing around him like Sonny was a maypole, and then came what the white boys called the Phantom Punch. Phantom Punch. That was some BS. Go look at the video. Sonny fell down without even being hit, and the folks didn't miss a beat. Oh, Ali got him with that Phantom Punch so fast the human eye couldn't see it, and the videotape couldn't capture it, no matter how many times you slowed the thing down. That's what happens when white folks control everything, and then we pick up what they say and we run with it like it's from Moses coming down off old Mount Sinai, and nobody checks it. But Ali, even though he could fight like a demon, he had the heart of a child. So loving and kind, like a child, man, so simple and kind. If you took him to your house and your grandma was sick, that man would stay there till 9 o'clock. It was just his kindness, his niceness. You never saw anybody as nice, as kind as Ali. And why didn't he lose his money? Well, contributions to the Nation of Islam weren't tax deductible because the government called it a hate group. So the money Ali gave the nation didn't count. Bob Hope would give $1 billion as a tax write-off, but not Ali. But Ali just kept doing what he was doing. He had a large family, and generous Ali took care of them all. He couldn't get over it when he was invited to Harvard, Yale, and MIT, and he had barely finished high school. He was just so thrilled and happy, like a little boy. He was born in 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. He started boxing when he was 12, and it wasn't long before he decided he wanted to do it for a living. No wonder the boy could fight. He won half a dozen state championships and got a gold medal at the Olympics in Rome in 1960. To a black boy from Louisville back then, going to Rome must have seemed like going to the moon. Before he was done, though, people the world over knew who he was. Everybody who has success, including Jesus, has had to move from here to there. In other words, nobody starts where he's supposed to be. You start at the wrong place and then you move over there where things happen. So for Ali, have I told the story about Ali and the bike? When he was growing up in Louisville, his dad gave him a bike for his birthday, and the first day he went riding on that bike, somebody stole it. Ali panicked. He ran around looking for that bike, scared to go home. After a while, he went around the corner to the police station to report it, mad as a wet hen, threatening to beat up whoever had taken the bike. The cop he talked to also ran the boxing gym. When Ali went in and said, "Did anybody see a bike in there? Somebody stole my bike." The cop who owned the gym said, "When you get through and find it, come back and I'll teach you how to fight." A nice story. And it started because Ali was looking for his bike. So when you stop and think about that, how did that happen? I mean, maybe if it hadn't been for that, it would have been just another trifling dude walking down the street, never having any idea he would one day go to Harvard and Yale to speak, go all over the world, talk to parliamentarians, talk to parliaments. Why? Because of a bike. As great a boxer as Ali was, what people forget is that he spent 3 of the best years of his career outside the ring, after he refused to join the military during the Vietnam War and got stripped of the title he'd won from Liston. His thing was, why should he go over there and fight the yellow man who'd never done a thing to him, all for the benefit of the white man who'd raped and killed his ancestors? He said, "No Viet Cong ever called me the N-word." People ate that stuff up. He was a hero. A different kind from Joe Louis, but a hero just the same. And he was funny. The way he'd talk about other fighters had you cracking up. When he would fight again, he fought Joe Frazier, lost the first time, won the second 2. That third one, you never saw a more brutal fight in your life. How he and Joe survived that, I don't know. And the year before that, Ali had done what nobody thought he could do. He whooped George Foreman. Used the rope-a-dope on him till Foreman was so tired he couldn't see straight. And then Ali went to work. Ever see a clip of Foreman falling to the canvas at the end of that fight? All that was missing was somebody yelling, "Timber!" No matter how good you are, though, you can't fight the man Ali fought and not suffer some damage. That Parkinson's he had was from getting hit by the toughest dudes on the planet. By the time he died in 2016, Ali was so quiet you wouldn't have known this was the same man who used to make up rhymes about his opponents. But go back and look at those fights. That brother can fight like nobody else. He shook up the world all right. Nothing can change that. Ali was a disciple of Elijah Muhammad, the head of the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad lived around the corner from me. I used to love to go talk to him. One time he said to me, "When are you going to join the mosque?" He said I was more like a Muslim than a Muslim. I said, "Let me tell you something, old man. Anytime you see me on TV, I'm just trying to make black folks laugh. Make white folks laugh. That's all I'm trying to do. Make N-words glad and white folks to be sad. I'm not trying to join nothing." Another thing about Elijah Muhammad, you never ate bean soup until you ate some that came out of his house. Anyway, I just like to listen to him because he did something nobody else did. He couldn't talk, couldn't speak. He was an ignorant somebody. But he rented all white radio stations on Saturday and put his message out there. Every Saturday. He was like Daddy Grace that way. But I was talking about Ali. I went to his funeral and a guy said to me, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't know." I told him there are no words in the English language that can describe what we lost when Ali died. I mean, you had to be around him, man. Like I said, he was like a child, happy. When I was running across the country, Ali would come out and see me between fights. One time, the girl who was doing PR for Muhammad hurt her leg, so we took her to the hospital. Word got around that Dick Gregory was in the lobby, so this woman who was dying from cancer, an old black-hating white woman, you can't look as old as her and not hate black people, she said, "Mr. Gregory, they tell me Ali, he's coming back here after the fight in Germany. You think he'll come see me?" Well, I wasn't thinking, because if you're running 50 miles a day like I was then, and Ali was coming back 4 days later, my mind would have been 200 miles away. But somehow I remembered the white lady's request, and I took Ali by the hospital. He walked to the woman's bed, picked her up, and kissed her on the mouth, and told her, "I'm the greatest. Tell me you love me." We got there at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 6 o'clock that night, he was still there doing his little jokes for her. That was Ali. The whole humanity piece, you know? Harry Edwards in the 1968 Olympics. Harry Edwards is a black sociologist born in 1942. He studies the experiences of black athletes, and he works to recruit blacks for executive positions in sports. In 1969, Edwards wrote a book called The Revolt of the Black Athlete. He was an athlete himself, discus thrower on the San Jose State University track team. Maybe the thing people know him most for, though, is what happened in 1968 at the Olympics in Mexico City. Tommy Smith, a black runner, won the gold medal in the 200-meter event. Another young brother, John Carlos, won the bronze. When they were on the podium after having received their medals with the Star-Spangled Banner playing, instead of doing what everybody else does, just stand there looking like they can't believe they're really at the Olympics, these two brothers raised their fists in protest of all the human rights abuses happening around the world, including the black folks. Well, Harry Edwards was the one who pulled that together. Their gesture was part of his Olympic project for human rights. In 1964, the Amateur Athletic Union was holding Olympic trials at Public School Stadium in St. Louis, where I'm from. I said, "Wow." He said, "Wow." I was in San Francisco at the time, performing at the nightclub, The Hungry Eye. But when I heard about the trials, I said, "I'm going to fly back to St. Louis, catch that midnight flight, and picket the trials with a sign asking Negroes to boycott the 1964 Olympics until we get civil rights legislation." This was so important that I went there with my picket sign, but black folks just looked the other way. Some white folks spat at me, and some others said, "You communist bastard." So I got back on the plane, and you want to talk about feeling low. I was feeling so bad. I just couldn't believe that people didn't care about something this critical. But what's important to you is not important to me. What's important to you is you're going to make the team and finally get that girl to go out with you. So I got back to the plane depressed. They couldn't bring me whiskey fast enough. Now it's 4 years later, 1968. Tommy Smith and John Carlos do their thing at the Olympics. And Dr. Harry Edwards writes a book, and he says, everybody asked me how'd I get the idea. And he said, well, it was Dick Gregory. He said, I live in East St. Louis, across the bridge from St. Louis, Missouri. One day when I was in high school, my daddy says, I'm going to take you all to see the Olympic trials. It's at a public school stadium. And I saw Dick Gregory with the picket sign. And that's where I got the idea. After I heard that, I traveled around the world and I saw those raised fists everywhere I went. A sign of solidarity. I kind of meditated on the real God and said, Amen. Thank you. Sometimes I forget that I plant the turnips, but it's your sunshine. It's your rain that waters the crops. That had never been brought home to me like that before. Nothing I could have done that day in 1964 could have had that much effect, but what those athletes did went all over the world. Well, wouldn't you know it, America sent Smith and Carlos home that same day, disgraced. The New York Times, the world press, they all said, who are these N-words and why'd they interrupt our game? But then the universe turned around and those brothers became a symbol that ordinary people embraced, that ordinary people could have. But Jesus, what those two went through trying to make a living after that, I mean, they did all right. Carlos played football, both of them became coaches, and Smith became a professor, but they're really not seen as the heroes they are. And the suffering they had to go through, getting accused of drug use before they were lifted up to their rightful place, and they're still not there, because when you think about what they did, you have to ask, how come they're not talked about like Rosa Parks? How can something happen that's so big and that moves people so much, and yet most people don't know anything about these two brothers? Somebody'd think they were born when they raised their fists and died right after. How'd they happen to go to San Jose? As good as they were, how did they end up there? And Harry Edwards, how come we don't know more about his daddy who took him to the Olympic trials? Who was his mother? Somebody's got to tell the world how important this was and how it happened. These people are our heroes, you hear me? Their story is another example of the universe at work, just like the story of Rosa Parks. She always said that had she known who the driver was that day, she would never have gotten on that bus, and the Montgomery bus boycotts might not have happened. The whole thing turned on something as little as that. With Tommy Smith and John Carlos, it was the same. Down to the universe. Had Harry Edwards not seen me with that picket sign that one day, he might never have come up with the idea for the Olympic demonstration, and those two black fists might never have come to represent solidarity all over the world. Wow, man. Tiger Woods. Now, I don't want to say that every father should be out there pushing his kids to do music and sports while they're still in diapers. But man, look what it did for Michael Jackson and Tiger Woods. Tiger's daddy, who by the way was the funniest dude I've ever met. Man, he started teaching him when Tiger was a little bitty tot. He told me about Tiger. God owed me that little punk with all them other trifling children he gave me. I deserved Tiger. The world has never seen a golfer like Tiger Woods before. Tiger was born in late 1975, started playing golf almost before he could talk, turned pro at 20, and won the Masters tournament in 1997. Walked away with almost $500,000. And he wasn't half done yet. Look at what this young brother went on to do. What Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali were to boxing, what Langston Hughes was to poetry. What Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, and Charlie Parker were to jazz, what Satchel Paige and Jackie Robinson were to baseball, this man was to golf. He won the Masters 3 more times, won the U.S. Open 3 times, won the British Open 3 times, won the PGA Championship 4 times, and in 2001 he had all 4 of those championships at the same time. He became PGA Player of the Year almost more times than you can count. He got paid to do so many commercials you couldn't turn on your TV or open a magazine without seeing his mug. And in 2009, he became the first athlete to top $1 billion in earnings. No wonder white supremacy put that man in their gun sights. What was almost more amazing than all of that, he got black folks interested in golf. Televised golf started at noon on Sunday, and black folks started going to the 7 a.m. church service so they could be home and cooking and ready to look at their boy. The earlier services grew so fast that nobody could believe it. They didn't have money for all the early services they needed so folks could get home on time. So they kept having 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock services. Old black people knew that God's at only the 11 o'clock service. Very funny. Black women loved Tiger because he was the successful son they'd never had. He was the one who could do this. He wasn't too dark. He spoke proper English. Black folks loved it, and nothing crushed them more than when that scandal happened. Wow, black folks didn't know how white supremacy worked. Tiger had to win 4 more majors to tie Jack Nicklaus, 5 to be all-time champion. So supremacists wanted to take him down. I can prove it, but I'd be willing to bet they made a deal with him. Excuse me, I can't prove it. You want to go to jail for 20 years for violating the Mann Act with that girl, Youngblood? No? Okay, you get out there and let the whole world see something happen to your back. Next thing we know, in 2014, he's having back surgery, and his game hasn't been the same since. That's what it's all about. He didn't know that the white folk coming to see him play in the majors didn't love him. He didn't know that until he had to get out of golf for a while, and the ticket sales went down 50% because 50% of them were hoping to see him get beaten. But when you think people love you and you ignore all the stuff that's happening, you miss what's really going on. What did he go through, man? Knowing he's smarter than most presidents, but he can't be one? And even after all the stuff he did, we're not going to hear about it. For example, the people who probably hired him as a consultant, I don't know if they did or not, but that's what they normally do. We'd like for you to say what you think about this, what you think about that. Then if you're Tiger, you have to go home and see that thing you consulted about turn into a $1 billion enterprise. Well, Tiger double-crossed these black folks. They didn't know he never finished Stanford, and thinking about hurting those black folks were after they had changed their church schedules for him. Then they find out he's just a low-down dog. All that adultery and the rest of it. When it came out that he had cheated on his wife with more than 100 women, when he got out of golf, well, black folks were hurt. It made them hurt inside. What really caused his downfall, though, was just that supremacists had to stop him from catching up to Jack Nicklaus. Old black folks lived just to see that. They didn't care about anything. They didn't care about anything about the damn golf. They just wanted to see a black man like Tiger succeed. Now they were looking at Tiger and seeing what white folks had done to him. Old black folks, they just said, humph. That's all they could say. He was like my son. If I had to draw a perfect young black man, it would be just like him. What happened to Tiger? What did it do to Grandma? What did it do to Grandpa? It hurt them, because Tiger had given them a sense of dignity they'd never had. Thanks for joining me. Hit the like and subscribe button if you like what you heard, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.